All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And of course, I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, and it's good to have everyone back with us for today's show. We're going to meet our guest in just a moment, but of course, first, before we get into the show and the conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our two sponsors. First, Quest Jewelers from Merrifield, Virginia. Quest Fine Jewelers has been around since 1999. And for those of you that have been watching the show, you know, if you've been to their website, they have some very excellent pieces of jewelry. And if you contact the staff there, they'll be more than happy to help you. Of course, we know that Mother's Day has passed, but for those of you looking for something nice for Father's Day, they also have pieces for men as well. So check them out. I also want to thank Nationwide IT Services. NIS is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business owned by a retired Army Warrant Officer, C.K. Park. He and his crew here in Fairfax, Virginia, will help you with all the business needs you may have, whether it's, training, whether it's IT support, security, whatever you need. CK and his crew will be more than happy to help you. And I want to thank CK also for his continued support of his fellow veterans, because he hires veterans and about 40% of his employee base are all veterans. So we want to recognize that as well. So thank you to both of our sponsors for our support. So I want to get into tonight's show and first just give a brief introduction to our guest tonight, which of course is retired Army Sergeant Major James Van Luden. And James I'm wanting to tell an interesting story here in just a few minutes, but James actually served 24 years, retired as a Sergeant Major, was a Green Beret. And the interesting thing is James is also not only a Vietnam War veteran, but a Korean veteran as well. So that's one of the unique things that we have about our guest today. James is the recipient of 2 Bronze Stars, and he's been living up here in the Northern Virginia area since about 1976. So James, first of all, let me just say welcome to the show and thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to run into some of the folks perhaps that I had served with in the previous years. Well, I said earlier, old age is not for sissies, though. I've got to tell you, I'm a little over 90, and pushing on in here and rushing around day to day is tough. Even though I continue to volunteer for other efforts and work with military as well as other folks here in Fauquier County, and will continue to do so as long as I can.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about, you have an interesting story in that you lied about your age and got into the National Guard. I think you said at 14 or 15 when you first started serving. How did you do that? Tell us about that.
Well, after World War II, all my uncles were veterans and so forth. And I guess the National Guard Armory was just a big party place primarily. Although I believe it was a 26th Infantry. And I went in as a 1745, which is a rifleman, and took the training. Went to a year's 2 or 3 week encampment, and I was a big kid. I loved being rough and tough, and I just thought it was a great bunch to be with. And obviously, I wanted to go into the military. In my day, it seemed when everybody grew up to the point where they were eligible to go to the service, I'm from Michigan, and they just wanted to go into the service. And I was one of those. And very bunch of dedicated individual, a lot of partying, a lot of running around, camping, and I got to know quite a few people. And it was an interesting thing because it taught me all the basics, even though when I went into the Army, they assigned me to due to my prior service, they called the National Guard, I didn't have to take another basic training because I'd been trained in all the weapons and all the infantry type stuff, and I was a certified rifleman. So they sent me to Europe in the occupation with the 4th Infantry Division, 12th Regiment. And again, I was just a common old soldier there, and put my 3 years in Europe because at that time there were no such thing as short tours. You put your 3 years in, and it was from the 52, 55 era prior to me being assigned to when I rotated, I was reassigned to the Special Forces at Fort Bragg, where they were just putting together the 77th, and they needed help, and I seemed to fit all a bit. I was a staff sergeant at the time, met all the requirements to be a Special Forces soldier, and they welcomed me into it. And we'll speak of that later.
Yeah, I think, I think it's really interesting. You started your career off so young. I guess I'm just curious, how did you get away with lying about your age like that? I mean, you said you were a big guy.
I had uncles that supported it.
Ah, okay. All right. So
And
you
they
had
were
a little
National
help
Guards,
doing
and
that.
3 of them were members of the National Guards unit.
Okay. So you had a little inside help to get in.
Had a little inside help.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, it's admirable. And I know that at the beginning of World War II, there were a lot of young men who lied about their age because they wanted to enlist and go fight. And so you got in, you went to Europe. Tell us just a little bit about some of your experiences as a young soldier in Europe.
Well, in Europe, in the National Guard, it was, as I said, it was a fun activity, really a club and so forth. And even when we went up for a 2 or 3 weeks summer camp, we went up to Camp Grayling in northern Michigan, played around, did our infantry, got our basics when it comes to weapons and the military. When I got to Europe, it was great because Europe was a little different than you'd know it today. There were rubble piles in every little city pushed together from the war. The Germans, there were those few that hated us yet, and they would stencil things on walls saying "Amy" for Army, "Amy go home," AMI go home. But the ones that really loved us were the ones that had been prisoners here in the United States, worked our farms, and they were all looking forward and willing to come back if they had the opportunity. The people were different. It like growing up in a strange neighborhood. Obviously, I was with the 12th Infantry Regiment up in Gillenhausen, Germany, 4th Infantry. We were doing a lot of infantry training. We were working together with some of the Germans as well as some of the other folks that were in there. And we had a pretty good selection of young men. I guess at most, the old guy was probably the commander, and he was probably all of 35 at the time. So, as I recall, but it was a great organization. Being around Gillenhausen, being around, being able to go down to Munich to the Oktoberfest, just a great thing for a young man, and it grew on me. 3 years was a long time, but it was what it was, and I was ready and happy when they reassigned me to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to start off the 77th Special Forces Group. I had been a staff sergeant. Physically, I was in shape. I met all the requirements. I met all the previous training for individual weapons, and I had been to a school at one of the places to learn to be an instructor for the 4th Infantry Division. So I had the qualifications that they wanted to shoot me out, train me, and I took my training at Fort Bragg, of course, was over a year.
Yeah.
And I've given Sean a copy of that list of what we were trained in, but it was good training and good work. I loved it and got the big head, I guess. I was so proud of being a sergeant major in later life, but I was so proud just to be an E6 in the Special Forces. Fort Bragg was a different thing. As a youngster, I made a lot of trips on Bragg Boulevard, seeing they had nothing but clubs and bars and friends. And more military from Fort Bragg. The 82nd Airborne, I worked with a number of those folk and some of the special activities.
So you, and I, during my years in the Army, not only went to school with, in fact, when I went to my first sergeant's course, there were 2 Special Forces first sergeants in my class in the First Sergeant Academy out at El Paso. But I had a chance to be around and work around a few of those guys, and they were really great to work with. So you left, you left your Special Forces training, and I'm assuming that you went to Vietnam shortly after that.
Well, I went from Special Forces. I went first to Korea.
Okay.
And that was during the well, I don't know whether it was the occupation or what, but it was a little different life. And I went there because the Special Forces was having some problems. We had the 10th at the time, we had the 1st, and we had the 77th then, and we weren't getting enough training, and there weren't enough of us in Korea. So I was a group of a few people, a handful or a couple handfuls that went into Korea. And much of my job was, even though I was assigned to, and Sean's got some of this stuff that tells him we're not supposed to talk about where I was assigned and attached to, even though I was still in a special operations activity. The majority of my service was special operations, pure and simple. It's just that in one part of my records here, and I'd given him a copy, it says if I were injured or killed in action anywhere, they were reported as a result of a training incident in the Philippines. And hell, I wasn't in the Philippines. I was everywhere and anywhere around the world attached to, working for. And they gave me an MOS. Initially, I had what was called a 002.63 77, you know, all about the
Yeah.
And then they made me into a logistician. And of course, the logistician, they gave me a description of it, was a guy that put everything together and ran an organization, decided on who went where, why, and how, and picked up anything. And then we got involved with the Army Security Agency and the National Security Agency. I was one of 1,000 people special trained in the military by the National Security Agency. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that or not, to do certain functions. So therefore, I got all around the world and met with many people. And some of the training was just good training. I look back, they called it Sneaky Pete's, and that was just about the way it worked.
Yeah. So how long were you in Korea?
I think it was a 16-month tour. I'd have to go back and look at my records. As I said, I've been all over the world.
Yeah.
I was in Korea. I went from there. I came back to an outfit at Fort Monmouth, and they called it a Signal Operations Unit, which was, again, a special operations unit. And I was putting facilities and supporting people in Pakistan, Iraq, over somewhere in the around the Hawaiian area, Germany, and I think another one or two when we were getting ready to open up an organization in Iran. And I had been assigned there, and I was working with the signal laboratories. In fact, you know, I hate to mention this, I got reduced twice. They put me into an organization where you had to beg, borrow, and steal anything that you happened to get hold of.
Yeah.
And I did my share of it. One time in Korea, I got reduced because there was a guy in there that I was a sergeant with. We had a lieutenant that I had been a sergeant with, and he and I screwed up one night. We were out after curfew, and the commander didn't like the guy, and he wanted me to write a statement where he could get out this officer, and I refused. So he reduced me. And I forget what he said, but what the hell. And then the second time, I got reduced when I was at Fort Monmouth because there's a guy that was running the U-2 flights. In fact, his son currently runs a museum out here in Van Hill, running the museum thing, needed a part and a piece, and he couldn't find the thing. And I found one laying at the laboratory, and I just picked it up and shipped it to him so he'd have it. And they got me again for inefficiency for not recording all that. They reduced me again. So I don't know. And then they sent me back overseas so they promote me because they felt they needed me. I don't know. No, but I probably wasn't the best soldier in the world, but I had a great time.
Well, you know what? I have to tell you, listening to some of your stories, because I remember some of the old soldiers that I served with, and I call them old soldiers because I did serve with a number of Vietnam veterans during my time. And, they used to share some of their stories, and they used to joke around and say, yeah, we weren't considered a good soldier unless we got reduced or busted at least once for something.
I didn't realize that.
So you must have been really good if it happened to you twice. And so you left Korea.
Well, I left Korea. I went to Monmouth. From Monmouth, I went on to Iran, and I had Iran to Afghanistan, through the Khyber Pass into Pakistan. I had Ankara, Turkey. I had Europe. I was stationed in Tehran, had my home, took my family with me. I'd gotten married, took my family with me, and my children were raised essentially in the Middle East because we spent 5 years in there, and then they sent me right to Europe after I'd been in Tehran that period, and I picked up everything. And of course, in Tehran was, again, I was, for the most part, I was training the Kurds in some respect. And then when I was in Vietnam, I was with the Montguard Indians. They loved to jump out of airplanes and use machetes and play with them. It's quite a thing. And I have a few pictures here of my dentist in the Middle East. My dentist, you see, my dentist was out in Karachi, Pakistan. I have a photo of him. He's on the street corner outside the Salatine Club. He's got teeth all over the place, and it shows his drill was a bicycle wheel, but he was a good dentist. I've given one to I have two friends here who are dentists that I've given copies of that photo to. One of the guys that comes in and plays and entertains us at the senior center told me I'm the only guy he knows that remembers Karachi, Pakistan, and the Salatine Club. And then the other one, I got me getting a haircut. I'm sitting there hunched over, letting him shave my head. And my current barber here used to be right here in Warrington, used to be a Korean machine gunner. I don't know how the hell he got into barbering when he got here. He said they tried truck driving and that. He finally got into it, and he owns a shop. And he really cuts my hair. He just puts the clippers next to it, and I have to wait. I only have to get it cut every month because it takes that long to grow out again. And have an awful time combing it. And I have to look good for all these ladies. I volunteer at the senior club in Warrington. I have a couple of more veterans in there. One of them's 93. He was one of the, he was a Navy pilot. In fact, after the war here, between the wars, he carried the atomic bomb around doing the privacy, hunted submarines and such. The other guy was a fixed wing as well as a helicopter pilot, and he's a retired individual. I'm going to bring him with me. They're having a meeting, I think, here next Monday. I'm going to bring him with me and introduce him to Heroes Bridge. But he's fixed wing and helicopter. And I look on the organization chart. Eventually, I was embedded with a company. Looks like I couldn't keep a job. I started out with 2 or 3, and I ended up being the president of a field engineering corporation for the Mantech International Company. And I have my picture there, and they sold that company for 43-point-something mil. And I had people, again, all over the world. I was continuing my efforts under the guise of being something else, obviously.
Jim, let's do it. We're gonna take a short break real quick, and then when we come back from our break, we're gonna continue talking with you because I want you to share. Some of the things that you've been doing, like you're mentioning here at the senior center, and some of the things you've done.
Okay, no,
that
that's
you retired. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after we see a break from our sponsors.
Yeah. Well,
All right, welcome back, everyone. And you've been watching the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And unfortunately, you've also watched me have my eyes watering while Jim was talking. I apologize to the audience for that. I'm not sure what happened, but the break turned out really good. Gave me a chance to kind of wipe my eyes out. It had nothing to do with Jim's story. So, Jim, I'm glad that you're with us. Your military experience spanned about 24 years. You're a retired sergeant major, and I know you just mentioned when you left there, you served as the president of Mantech Systems, which was later sold. So I understand, now that you're in the community here in Northern Virginia, that you served on the Board of Zoning and several other boards during your time, and you're very active in your veterans home. Can you share a little bit about that with us? Because, I know you said you're 90 years old, but you seem like you're still going strong.
Hey, let me tell you, I'm still going strong. But I just told Sean, I said, hell, I'd probably chase women till I'm 100, but if I catch them, we're both going to be embarrassed. No, in fact, once I got out of the military, and they have a number of committees and so forth that I've served with here in civilian life. On the BZA, I was there for about 10 years, Board of Zoning Appeals, adjudicated a number of activities. I was the chairman and assistant chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals for Fauquier, and it has to do with the court. I was later on the court for Judge Parker. I was on the committee of four-person. I was chairman of a four-person committee that adjudicated about 300 cases of land assessments and so forth for Judge Parker. I've been on a number of other committees where they're building a school. They need someone to come in and essentially lay out things, worry about traffic, this, that, what have you. We're doing a bunch of construction here within Fauquier County. Obviously, we got that group that don't want to build anything here, and I guess I can understand that to some degree. And then you're looking for the folks that want to build everything. So I'm on a number of committees. I volunteer my time, and when you volunteer your time, no money, everybody wants some of it. I work at the as far as the let's see, when it comes to some of I'm on the sheriff's committee here. So we have an occasional meeting there. I started off with Bob Mosier and stuck with him while he was down in Richmond. And of course, with a new one, and I'm still on the committee, have an occasional meeting. I get a newsletter of what's going on and just try to keep people abreast and things of what's going on within the legal activity here in Fauquier. I volunteer for the senior center, which is down in, in Warrington. Volunteer between about 9 and 2 o'clock Monday through Thursdays, and on other occasions when people need help. It's a good organization. We have about 41 members, I believe, probably 25 to 30 that come in there every day. It's nice because we have entertainment. We're always looking for someone that can play a guitar or do an article or would like to come in and speak. We're always looking for entertainment for someone to come in, because trying to keep these old folk, I shouldn't call them old folk, trying to keep those old folk happy. And
sorry, well, let me just ask you: Are you talking about Heroes Bridge, where you're?
No, well, I'm not talking. I'm speaking about a senior center.
Okay, all right.
This is
That's what I wanted to make sure I was
60. This is for folks over 62. And
okay.
It's some of them are disabled, some of them are in good shape. Some of them are working in nursing homes or just visiting. And we have a lot. I'm always looking for entertainment. And I'm also on the board that operates. I'm on the state board that is responsible for 5 of these senior centers. We have one in each county here. And I'm on that board. I meet once a monthly, and I'm a member of it. In fact, I have a meeting next Tuesday with them. It's just another one of my volunteer activities, and I'm always looking out for something to do, entertainment, to get a place we might be able to go to, things that are going. And we do have a lot of entertainment. We visited the Congressional Library out in Culpeper. We visited a few of the other type activities around military and such. We've had people come in and speak, and it's just, we try to keep an interesting thing going. And we have a lot of music. We have a little bit to sing together, and it's been great. So I've done that. Now, as far as the senior, as the Heroes Bridge, I don't believe I'm on anything. I sent John a package of stuff that he's got here to look through, and I'm available if there's someone that needs help or somebody that would like to discuss some of these activities, such as yourself. I'm quite willing to do so. And if there's an individual that needs help, I'm in decent enough help mentally as well as physically that I can still get around and I hope help folk, lay a hand on their shoulder and bring them back to life. I joined, I'm a member of the First Baptist Church. I meet with their deacons there on Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, which includes 2 other Special Forces brothers and 3 Marines. You can imagine what we speak about on occasion. We talk about life activity. It's about a 3-hour meeting, and then we have a little bit of our church type meeting. So I go to the First Baptist Church in Warrington. I also attend the church. They have a dinner every evening. I'll be at one tonight, in fact. They have a dinner once a month. I go up there because it's a potluck. I get to see my neighbors, talk to my neighbors, couple-hour things, drop $100 in a pot, eat about $1 worth of food, and everybody's happy to see me. So yeah, I'm available when it comes to help, and when I go to these various places, I'm available. I believe in friendship. I believe you reap what you sow. And I have been very fortunate in life to have had some blessed friends and so forth. As a first sergeant, I was just telling Sean earlier, I said, yeah, I'd been a hay boy. And even after I got to be a sergeant major, a first sergeant, later a sergeant major, I ended up a hay boy. That's just part of the job, as you well know.
So, yeah, well, let me just say,
it's just been an interesting life. My sons are very proud. I'm putting things together for them because, as I said, they were with me much of this time, but they had no idea what I was doing. I still have a security clearance. I have a gag order. I've got a place where I have to ask before I visit certain countries, and I can't run with a bunch of foreign folk. So I do have some restrictions.
So you're just not at 90. You're just not slowing down. I think that's admirable. And you said a couple of things here that I hear so many of our veterans who come on the show talk about is they want to continue to serve, to continue to be involved. They want to give back something, and you just kind of reiterate that theme and live that theme that so many of our veterans on the show do, that they feel like it's their mission in life, I guess you could say, to share with others and give back. And I think it's incredible for you to be doing the things that you're doing with, like you called them in the senior center, the older folks, that you're still able to do. And it's just, I think it's very admirable. So, I want to.
Well, I got to tell you one thing. I'm still doing a portion of my daily dozen. I throw a little exercise. I hurt, and it's tough being old. And I got piece parts in me. Obviously, everybody that's been blown up a bit, but I, for the most part, I try to keep my exercise, my diet in shape. I'm when I got out of the Army, I was a little over 6 foot. Now I've dropped to 5'10". I used to wear an extra large shirt. Now I'm back down to a large. And my waist, though, is I'm not worried there. I can still get into a 38 trouser, which means I've grown a little bit. So,
you're doing pretty good, though.
Yeah. So I do. I try to live well, and I try to keep up with it. And I'm so fortunate because this morning I had a visitor that came over to the house because he had called me and he said I didn't sound that well. And 10 minutes later, he showed up at my door. And he'll be there tonight, for instance, to drive me over to the church where we're going to have dinner.
Yeah.
It's just, I have been so blessed with friends and neighbors and family. I say my wife was tighter than bark on a tree, so I can afford to live well. She didn't need an awful lot of stuff. We saved money, and it's just a wonderful type thing. And you're right. I try to encourage veterans to stay involved and remember their services. And it's amazing. Some of the folks at the senior center have memory problems, as well as other health problems and such. And I'm able to get them off in a corner and sometimes bring them back into it. And the nice beauty part of it is they serve them a nutritious lunch every day, and they ask for a $2 donation. So if there's anybody that'd like to donate any money, any of our folk, we'd be happy to take $20 from anybody. You're welcome to send it to me for the senior center or whatever, but it's not of necessity. If it hurts you, don't do it.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna ask Sean, via email after the show if he'll give me that information, and we'll post it out on my show website as well.
Right.
For anyone who can donate. I know that Heroes Bridge also, we've mentioned a number of times, takes donations for their operations.
Do they have financially, are they, do they have anybody, state, federal, any? I guess I ought to ask Sean that, though.
Yeah, I mean, that I couldn't tell you. And Cece put up on the screen, she did put up the information there about Heroes Bridge for our audience. And of course, we've mentioned them a couple of times on a show before about being able to go to their website. And I understand that you guys are working on a new facility out there too, that they're trying to put together for the residents.
Yeah. Yeah, that's in fact, they're going to build, I think they've got 42 houses or something that they're working with a church on, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to see, what they're doing and what you're doing and your involvement there with those organizations, because, usually when you see a veteran and they're in their 90s, they're usually on the, how can I say, the relaxation side of everything and enjoying their life. And it seems like you're enjoying your life by continuing to volunteer and help people out, both at the senior center and Heroes Bridge.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm looking through this little package, I guess you can see that. I'm looking through a little package, and I wanted to share with you something that I got over the holidays here. This is one of my guys that he's my age, and he's still in Turkey, and I hope they're not checking his mail, because he said, "Dear friend, this year is very different, and it's been about a year. I feel like I'm living a life in prison. Everyone here is scared of each other. Like that, we walk around on conditions. I'm sending my happiness and respect. Love, Ziki Ankara." And it's amazing. So I still have some contacts overseas, that folks that drop me a line on occasion and keep things going. But I feel so sorry. I wish he hadn't sent this, because it's just,
well, it just kind of highlights how fortunate we are after.
Very much so.
Yeah. After veterans like yourself and other veterans who are coming on and served, and it kind of highlights how fortunate we are here when you hear some of those kind of stories too.
It is. And it's strange. In fact, let me read you a little something here. That this is my Mantech job. I was they addressed me through the Intel people out the facility here to me, Mr. James W. Van Luven, President, Mantech Engineering Company, blah, blah. Dear Mr. Van Luven, it gives me great pleasure in passing on to you President William Clinton's letter of appreciation with endorsement from the Director of Central Intelligence, Don Deitch, for the work you have done in supporting ISO in fighting the war on drugs. All of us are not feel satisfied in this war until the scourge is eliminated. I find comfort in knowing you are putting your best and brightest people supporting DOD in this effort. Again, please pass my thanks each and every employee working on this problem. I have 5 or 6 of these typed letters we probably shouldn't speak of.
Yeah.
That coming into the various intel units. And of course, my letter is, I had a dozen people, and I just put, dear whoever his name was, one of my employees, I'm passing the attached letter of appreciation and endorsement to all members of the team involved in the counter-narcotic program talks. I'd like to add my personal thanks and express my appreciation to each of you, so described by Carl Claley as best and brightest. I realize that special commitments such as yours cannot be described nor mandated in an employee's contract. It comes from a conspicuous personal qualities and a special work ethic. Individual and collectively, you are making noteworthy contributions in stemming the flow of drugs and helping us in the war on drugs. Congratulations, job well done. Regards, Jim Van Luven. That's been part of my training as well as anything else on a daily basis. I don't know how much of that I should be putting out. I'm assuming you'd edit this.
Well, Jim, so let me do this as we wrap the show up, though. I mean, you've been involved in so many things, and you've had so many experiences. And before we close the show, there's one more thing I want to ask you. If you could share one message with the audience or our veterans out there or the audience in general, if there was one thing that you could share that you'd like to share with them, what would it be?
Hang in there and support the military and its activities.
Well, you know what? That's good. That's very sweet, straight, and to the point. And I have to tell you, I mean, I echo that as well. I just had my oldest grandson graduate from Air Force basic training this week. And, you know, he's continuing on the service legacy of the family like his dad did. And so I want to thank you for that, because I think that's very important that we continue to support our veterans and our military, and especially the veterans such as yourself who have given so much to the country. So I want to thank you so much, Jim, for taking the time to come on the show today. And, you know, God bless you. We appreciate you. We appreciate your service, and we wish you the best of luck in the future.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being heard. A little scary going through some of this garbage I've got in my hand here.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything. I belong to some. Well, I never gave it up, because once I got out of the military, I was embedded in an area what I was doing just the same as everything else. In fact, I just flipped the one that in front of me here. It's a MAC-SOG type thing. Special Force Advisor brings in a helicopter and a Mike Force mobile for the Montgard Indians after a 16-day sweep in November. The indigenous forces were very effective in conditioning, reconnaissance, and combat operations. And I'm always thankful and happy to work with this. And of course,
well, Jim, I gotta tell you, we have to close the show, but
can I do one more thing?
Okay,
I have
go
to
ahead.
do this one really, and you can cut it out if you like. I got a picture of me and a couple of the girls here. And if you haven't noticed, there's a James Bond theme happening this year. Few characters have withstood the message at a time like Bond. He's a man of mystery, but I think he's probably a Shriner. I'm a lifetime Mason and Shriner, by the way, Masonic Mason.
Right.
But why do you ask? He's all timeless, classy, tech-savvy badass who looks good in a tux and always gets the girl. That pretty much describes a Shriner. I'm saying to think Casino Royal for the Potentate's Ball on April 23rd that we will have. Martinis will be shaken, not stirred. So I'm involved heavily in Masonic activities also, as well as the shrine activities, Fez member and what have you. Don't know whether that makes much difference or not to your folks.
Well, sir, I just want to thank you so much for appearing on the show, and we wish you the best of luck in the future.
Well, very good, and thank you for having me. And I'd get some information on our sponsors here from Sean, because I would like to have the address of the jeweler, because I do occasionally get into buying jewelry for some of my friends.
Okay.
And advice.
Yeah, we can provide that to Sean. I'll make sure I send
Yeah,
that
I've
to him.
already told him. So
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Very fine. And I guess that's over and done. I can leave.
Well, thank